So a lot of people are talking about DC penalties and if they should be removed or not. I don't usually make videos like this, but in this case, it's a perfect opportunity to talk about something that I've been talking about for a long time. So if you don't know, bots are getting added to DBD, and right now with the DC penalty in place, people aren't going to disconnect from lobbies, which would then replace them with bots. Instead, they're just going to die on hook to avoid the current DC penalty, and that's just going to mean bots never replace anybody because nobody's ever going to disconnect. So Scott made a big video about this where he talks about all the different opinions floating around right now. I'm not going to go over all that. You should definitely watch Scott's video. But basically, not to speak for Scott, but he says two options are really available. We can either remove the DC penalty, or we could try to find some way to prevent people from being able to kill themselves on the hook. And obviously, both of them have problems. Like if you remove the disconnect penalty, people are going to DC all the time for any little thing, and nobody really wants that. And obviously, you can do all you want to prevent people from killing themselves on hook. They'll just get unhooked, run towards the killer, get down, get hooked again, or they'll go completely AFK and just come back in, 5 minutes, 10 minutes when they're actually fully dead. So neither of those really solves everything, right? Scott recommends a hybrid option where you get 3 DCs a day with no penalty, and the fourth one is like immediately 15 minutes or higher. And so that way each day people can DC up to 3 times immediately, and you're at least sometimes replaced with a bot then, but at least bots get used somewhat. And I think Scott's idea is a good idea. What I want to say today isn't to go against his idea, but to say whether or not his idea is used or not, whether they remove DC penalties or not. I have a separate system that I think is also a system I would like to see added for the game, and I want to explain how it helps DC penalties and how it would help other things like prestige 100 people being either completely ignored or outright tunneled, which, say whatever you want about it, whatever you think about it, it's a problem people are talking about as well. So I'm just going to start. I think behavior should just be tracking things like disconnects, attempting into second state, missing consecutive skill checks that results in your death, and they should take this information and make it viewable in pre-game lobbies. Maybe not for killers, but definitely for survivors. And this solves a few things. Don't start writing your comment yet. This is just complicated to explain. It lets survivors versus Skull Merchant with who's 3genning, or Onryo with condemned builds to DC however they really want. And even allows people that maybe don't like Billy for some reason, for whatever fucking crazy reason, to DC as many times as they possibly want. And each time they will get replaced by a bot. But for those people that disconnect all the time, they're going to slowly start to realize that they're getting dodged more and more often when they load into lobbies. And people who chronically disconnect will basically have their own secondary MMR where only bad or completely ignorant or new players are going to stay in their lobbies. So it almost creates a social shaming system where even if you don't really care what people think of you, you are going to end up just playing lower quality games, probably with other people that disconnect if they don't even dodge you. But the point is, DCing too often will probably have lasting effects for people that DC so often. While at the same time, this system wouldn't prevent people from DCing at all, because who cares if you just get one little mark in your account? It's going to happen all the time. Lobbies disconnect all the time. Steam goes down every Tuesday. Internet goes out for people all the time. Power goes out. Everyone will have some marks on their account, but people that chronically DC will really start to consider if it's worth racking up the account. Of course, there should be exceptions to when it counts as attempting. So attempting into second state shouldn't count if everyone's dead or downed. It shouldn't count in the end game collapse. The games are probably over then. And it shouldn't count if there's only one survivor left, or just one survivor that's left unhooked anyway. And that would even allow you to give people hatch still and do lots of things where when the game is over, it doesn't count. It doesn't count towards you at all. Of course, these ticks should decay over time, but I don't think it should reset completely like ranks do every month. I think it should be a sort of a rolling decay where 30 days ago, whatever you did falls off tomorrow, etc. Right? As you go, the oldest one falls off. So that over time, if you do improve or you do get worse, it just slowly changes over time. It shouldn't be hard reset on the 13th of every month. That would be dumb. There is one obvious solution to this system that people will definitely do. They'll just get unhooked and run straight towards the killer to get down and hooked again, or they'll just go completely AFK and just come back in a few minutes when the match is over. But one, I think people will do this in any system that we implement, and you can't actually make somebody play a game they don't want to play. There's literally nothing you can do to do that. But I also think that would happen way less often than people die now, just because it takes much longer to die that way. Who's really going to go to the effort of spending 4 minutes trying to die when a match itself only lasts 7 to 14 minutes? Nobody really. I don't think people are really going to do that. Very rarely compared to now anyway. And more importantly than that, there's another thing I think that should be added, and that's some type of summary of previous matches people have played. So this would be another thing that would be added in the pregame lobby, where you can view the outcome of other people's games. It doesn't have to be a screenshot of their lobby. Maybe it shouldn't show the perks, but it should show the blood points earned, and it should show which killer you win against. I think that is kind of normal for other games, isn't it? Aren't there ways to see like KDs and things like that? I think this is kind of a normal idea that normal games have, but for some reason, DBD doesn't seem to have it. Why are players in DBD protected so much against what happens from match to match? Like when a match ends in DBD, nobody will ever know what happened over your career. Like, why are DBD players protected so much from their own skill being presented to other players? Things like KD, things like giving up in other games, it's shown on your account. Why doesn't behavior have that type of system? Why can't we see a summary of your last 10 games, your last 50, 30, however many games? It shouldn't even be that difficult to do. Just the difficult part would be making a clean way to present it, I would imagine. But anyway, if they did show your previous games, you would also be able to see if somebody went AFK, if somebody got unhooked and ran right to the killer. They're going to have much, much lower points. It sounds like a lot, but I mean, it does solve more than just disconnecting. It would give you a glimpse into what somebody's behavior is like, what type of player they're, if they're a silly player or what, based on, you know, the previous game stats and showing the blood points and things like that. But they could do other things too when they go in to change the system to implement this. They could also implement a thing for prestige where you can change which prestige is represented on your character. If I have Dwight leveled to prestige 56, I should be able to change which prestige is displayed up to 56. If I want to look like I'm prestige 1 Dwight with a prestige 1 emblem, why can't I change that? Why can't there be all types of different emblems aside from prestige that we can represent on our accounts? Like they made this whole charm system. Let's have an emblem system. Let's have a mini profile system that has different things on it. And I know I'm yapping, dude. I've never done one of these things before. I've never done a video like this before. I'm literally just yapping. But if this system was too complicated, they don't want to overwhelm new players. It's too much to have 30 different options of what to see on a player. Just make a color system. Just make it, again, killers shouldn't see this, but just make it so that survivors can see a color indicator in pregame lobby that represents how prone you are to disconnecting. Behavior could track all these things behind the scenes. How often you attempt unhook into second state, how often you miss skill checks to force death, how often you disconnect outright. And they could just represent it with a yellow name, a red name, and people could dodge you on that. I don't know. The point of me saying this isn't to suggest a system that prevents people from disconnecting or giving up or dying in general, because if people don't want to play the game, they're not going to play the game. There's nothing we can do about that. But people aren't switches that are just on or off. A lot of people are in between where they kind of might want to DC, they might not, and something's about to push them over the edge. And those people that are a little more impulsive might just need something that makes them consider for just a minute if they really, really want to disconnect or not. And I think a social shaming system like this, it's like lowering your KD in a shooter game. Like people that care don't play with people with shitty KDs, at least if it's an option for them to dodge. And people with KD don't want a low KD. It's embarrassing. So let me know what you guys think about removing DC penalties or what systems you want to see in the game related to this. My idea, again, isn't supposed to replace any ideas or even save the game. It's just something I wanted to see in the game for a long time, and it kind of relates to this. So let me know what you think. All right, later.